Hello, everybody, and welcome to Match Day Matinee, where we take our love for football and cinema and combine the two to talk about the best football movies available for viewing today. My name is Raghav Sandhu, and I'm joined by Mark Guillerme and Adam Ducker. First of all, Adam and Mark, how are you guys doing? Are you guys watching anything new? Passing the time? How's that going?
Good. I just finished up Never Have I Ever, the new Netflix series from Mindy Kaling, co-created by her, kind of inspired by her own adolescent years. I don't know if you guys have checked that out at all.
No, it's one the wife wants to watch, so
yeah,
we're waiting for some time to maybe both sit down and binge the whole thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's good, man. Once you watch the first episode, you'll be hooked. It's like an interesting story, kind of fresh perspective. Mindy Kaling is the co-creator, so of course has like that playlist-worthy soundtrack.
Yeah.
And it stars Maitreyi Ramakrishnan. I had to write that down. Who absolutely kills it as the main character. And she's actually from Saga. She went to high school in Meadowville.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Debut role, and yeah, she's amazing in it.
So are you guys watching that with your families?
It's funny, man. Like I binged the entire thing, and then I talked to my wife after. I was like, "Did you watch this show?" She's like, "I watched the whole thing last night." So we actually could have watched it together, but
wow.
We had a conversation after. There's two main guys on it, Team Ben or Team Paxton. So
right. I guess what I'm asking is, if a single guy was watching it on his own, would that be a little bit weird?
Not at all, man.
Okay, man.
Go for it.
I'll take your word for it.
Good show, but I want to come back to it later on because it ties into the film we're talking about today.
Awesome.
And the legacy of Bendit. So we'll come back to it.
How about yourself, Adam? What's up? What's new? What are you watching?
I just finished watching Ricky Gervais' Afterlife season 2.
Nice.
Not as funny as some of his other work, but like super emotional. Like he's really good. It's one of the undercurrents of The Office was him writing like real characters and them having actual emotions, and this is like the height of that. Like it's
right.
Husband who survived his wife who died from cancer, and he's trying to deal with it. It's super, like it makes you appreciate life, especially at the moment. So yeah, really good show.
Yeah. I've heard about that show. It's definitely on my watch list moving forward.
What's that on?
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 2 seasons of it. The second season just came out.
Yeah. I've been personally watching a lot of comedy specials. So there's a couple of new Anglo-Indian, I guess you can say, comedians that are on Netflix, which kind of ties into the movie that we're going to be talking about today. But one thing I've been watching on YouTube quite a bit is Andrew Schultz. I've been watching his stand-ups, and he actually uploads it in clips. And his rationale is basically that, people will often watch a stand-up special on Netflix and it's 2 hours long and it's all good, but they won't actually quite come to the end, even if they think the comedian's really good. But he's like, I upload in clips, and that way people just keep pressing next. They keep going to the next clip. And he's like, there's something psychologically about people just, having control over pressing that next button, because I find it's the same for The Office on Netflix. I sit down for one episode and I'm watching at least like 5.
Yeah. So it's committing to it too, right?
Exactly.
I'll sit down and watch like 2 hours of something on YouTube, but to actually put on an hour and a half movie on Netflix, I feel like I have to commit to it.
Yep.
Yeah, it feels like a struggle.
It's a bit of
time. Exactly.
Yeah. Now, is it a stand-up? Is it a traditional stand-up special, or is he doing it from his home?
No. So this is things that he's recorded in the past. So he tours the world just like any other stand-up comedian, but he only uploads clips at a time about different jokes.
Cool.
It's awesome. But I guess that's enough about traditional, shows and stand-up comics. Let's get into the movie. Let's get into Bend It Like Beckham.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Please have your tickets ready, because for the second week in a row, we're going to be heading back to London. This time, we're heading across town to West London for Bend It Like Beckham. This is a 2002 comedy drama about a young girl who yearns to rebel against her strict Sikh parents and join the local football squad. This movie stars Parminda Nagra in her English feature debut as Jesminder Bhamra, soon-to-be Pirate of the Caribbean Keira Knightley as Jules Paxton, and Jonathan Rhys-Meyers as their coach, Joe the Irishman. This film was directed by Gurinder Chadha, who began her career as a news reporter with BBC Radio and also directed several award-winning documentaries for the BBC. So, Adam, let's get into the meat and veggie of this movie.
So, the film opens up with starts with like real commentary from John Motson, And we get to see sort of a real game, Manchester United versus Anderlecht it is. It's a group stage Champions League game. And then everything's going normal. And then suddenly we see the main character, Jess, is playing football with all the Man United players. And there's some really weird CG that goes on there. It's like, not aged too well. It's one of those things like Uncanny Valley. Like it doesn't look quite right when you see her. And then it kind of cuts out to a bedroom filled with David Beckham stuff. So we're from this point where it's obvious that Jess is infatuated with David Beckham, and more importantly to the story, she's obsessed with football. But we find out pretty quickly she is in a British Indian Sikh family who live in Hounslow, and they are relatively conservative in their beliefs, and she should not be playing football. That's kind of where the plot goes from there. She meets Keira Knightley's Jules, who is the same age and a daughter of a white English family. The plot goes from there. Plays in the park together. And then Jules invites Jess to play for Hounslow, the team there, which is, I guess, a professional team. Or semi-pro at least. No, not professional. Just
Semi-pro
team, isn't it? Yeah.
The Hounslow Harriers.
Hounslow Harriers. And then Joe, the coach, accepts her into the team. But the parents find out that she's been playing behind their back, and they forbid her to play more games. And they tell her to concentrate on her what she should be doing, and the fact that her sister's getting married as well, which is an important subplot to the film. But in the end, Jess rebels and she plays football. She plays for Hounslow. She quite humorously escapes to Hamburg to play in a tournament. And then the film culminates, which we'll get to as we talk through it, with the wedding, and then Jules making an important decision about her footballing future. That's pretty much the plot of the film. We've missed out a lot in between, but I'm sure we'll get to it as we discuss further.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a film that I grew up watching, I guess, as a Canadian, as an Indo-Canadian. I was very excited to review this one. I think I was more excited as a child to watch this one, but it was still good, I found. Yes, and this is the first time I've actually noticed that weird CGI of Jess Bhamra heading the ball in from a David Beckham cross.
Yeah, it's that. And then when they're like celebrating towards the end, and it kind of holds on the shot of her, and it's like obviously somebody else's body with her head superimposed on it. Just was really weird. But I mean,
it's a real match, right? It's a real Champions League match.
Yeah.
That's a real match.
Man United beat Anderlecht 5-1. It was a real game.
We get a cameo of Canadian Hall of Famer Thomas Radzinski as well.
Yeah. Oh, yes, we do. Yeah. And actually, on that note, Adam, this is for you. There is one mention of Portsmouth in this movie.
I've got it in my notes. And I actually had to double take, right at the very end when, I guess we're skipping ahead, but Tony essentially pretends he's going to get married to Jess, and then Mum jumps up and says, "Oh wow, we'll have to tell we've got relatives all over from Glasgow to Portsmouth." Yeah, and then I was like, "Wait, did she just say that?" Yeah, So we get a one mention in there. Yeah, keeping our quota up.
Keeping your quota up, and actually Tony's character, I really like that in this movie. Just, he's kind of a secondary character, but he's Jess's best friend, and everybody thinks that they're probably going to end up together at some point, but he actually comes out as gay, but he still tries to support her. So what you just mentioned, Adam, by basically saying, "I'm going to pretend marry you so you can go to do your football and things like that." So I actually really liked his character in this movie, who might not actually get the plaudits when people usually think of this movie.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, this was 2001. To have a gay character in a film that was actually kind of handled with grace is
for sure
actually a relative big deal, right? I mean, if you look at other films we've looked at, like, most homosexual characters are kind of played for laughs around that era.
Yeah.
So they actually kind of handled it with, I guess, respect, I would say.
Yeah, and not only is it 2001, it's also a movie that a lot of Indian people are going to watch, right? And it's not as openly accepted in the Indian culture as it is now here, at least in the West. So that was interesting as well, and how they balanced that. And that just goes to show, I guess, what the relative theme of this movie is. It's the old versus new values. So that was interesting.
We get that pretty early on.
She only comes out to Jess, though, right? Sorry, he only comes out.
He only does because it's that struggle, right? He doesn't want his friends making fun of him. He doesn't want to lose his friends. He doesn't, want the Indian community to know, because once one, we call them auntie. So once one like lady finds out, like the whole neighborhood's gonna know, right? And it's not gonna be like, oh, we all know, and good for you. It's gonna be like, holy shit, he's gay, right? Like it's gonna be a talking point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there actually was the part where Jess is seen hanging out with Jules.
Yes.
Yep. And we do get the other side of that, where her mom, who is an Anglo-Saxon character, thinks that she's gay.
Yeah.
And that's met with outrage on her part. So I can only imagine in the Indian community how that would have been received, right?
Yeah. And you know what? Watching this movie now as an adult, I realized that this was also a theme in the movie, right? About athletes potentially always being homosexual and people's perceptions of that.
Yeah. Because the white mum is arguably as intolerant as Jess's parents are of Western lifestyle. Yeah. She's as intolerant. Like she even, we've missed what's his name? Frank Harper plays her dad.
Yes.
Plays Keira Knightley's dad, and he gets blamed for it. She's like, I told you she'd be butch if we let her play football and all this stuff. And it's like, it's undercurrent, and then she starts to feel better about it.
Right.
And even, it's just weird, isn't it? Like she convinces her a couple of times, I'm not a lesbian, I'm interested in the coach. But then she even pivots again, not believing it, because she sees them hugging and stuff. Yeah, it's just this whole film of like intolerance from older generations is this underlying theme. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I think that's the basis of the movie, right? I mean, football is one thing, but this movie actually touches on a lot of themes, and that's why I think it spoke to so many of us, at least Indo-Western kids, I guess you can say, because a lot of us were going through the same struggle at that time. Not necessarily with homosexuality or anything like that, but just generally, just how do we say certain things to our parents about how our lifestyles are and how we differ? Because the narrative has always been, and this is actually a good thing that our elder generation does, is because they've come to a relatively new place, their education or their credentials aren't necessarily what's the word I'm looking for?
Recognized,
exactly. The credentials aren't necessarily recognized, so they have to, either work as drivers, factory workers, blue collar jobs. And the whole notion is that I want to raise my kids and I want them to have a good jobs in a way where money's no object. You know what? Just put your head down, go through everything, laugh later. Whereas going into sports and going into football, going into hockey, whatever sport it is, does not guarantee you that. And for a lot of times, most people don't make it. Right. So,
but here's the thing. This is me coming from a totally different perspective. And it even gets mentioned in, I think it's when they find out she's been to Hamburg. Jess has gone to Hamburg. And the mum says, we've done everything for these kids. We've bought them everything they wanted. We've made sure. It's like all material possessions and none of that personal growth, kind of. Whereas if they nurtured Jess in a different way, they would have realised before she was a teenager that all she cared about was football. But instead, all they care about is the.
But I think it's a generational thing too, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah.
As much as you care about that, you still have to sacrifice that. That's what happened with her father, where he was a cricket player, but when he came to England, he was met with racism. So he immediately gave that up, and he sacrificed any recreational activities to work for his family. And I think even our parents still see that, right? Like you sacrifice now to enjoy life later, but. That's not really the case anymore. I think work-life balance now is a lot more in favor of mental health, right? And making sure you do enjoy life now.
Yeah.
So when Adam was saying when it wakes up and she's dreaming in her room and she's looking up at this giant poster of David Beckham, who's kind of a central character in this movie, even though he makes a minor appearance in it. You get the immediate kind of parallels between her generation and her parents' generation, because she's looking up to this poster and when she's almost dreaming or praying of what kind of future she can have, which she hopes is in football, she looks to Bex. And then when she goes downstairs, they have the big poster of, Regev, you're probably going to kill me on this. Is it Guru Nanak?
Yeah, that's good.
That's pretty good. Okay. Not so bad. They have a poster, or not a poster. They have a painting of him in their living room, which is relatively the same size. And right there is kind of a symbolism of who they look up to, right?
Yeah.
Where they look to for guidance. So it's kind of the main theme that goes throughout this entire movie, new generation versus old generation, where it's not necessarily about religion anymore. It's more about your idols.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very philosophical in a way, right? Because we've often heard people say that footballers are like the gods, right? People look up to them. Like we have the Church of Maradona in Argentina, right? Like it's insane. So yeah, no, I definitely, that's another parallel that I picked up on as well. Going back to one of Adam's earlier points, you mentioned that, Jess's parents, after they came back from Hamburg, basically they're saying, oh, what did we not give these kids? We bought them the TV video. We bought them all this stuff. And have you guys watched Hassan Minhaj before?
Yeah.
So
Patriot Act, right?
Yeah, Patriot Act, but he also had a special before where he says Homecoming, exactly. But he was basically saying, and he was joking mostly, but he was saying that, brown love is very conditional. It's like, if you get A's, I'm going to get you this, right? Like,
okay.
I think that's Asian in general, right?
Yeah. That was funny actually. And there's a lot of small funny moments in this movie that that I found funny personally. But
one thing I liked about this movie was it's kind of a crossover movie for Asia in the sense that, do you guys remember My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Yes.
Yep.
Like here in Canada at that time, it was huge. And I think it was around the same point, maybe a couple years difference, but it was kind of that first big window into a different culture where you had like the extended family coming over and a fish out of water. In that one, it was the fiance. In this one, it's not necessarily a fish out of water. It's more like I've heard the term ABCD before, like the American-born confused Desi.
Yeah,
in that sense, right? Yeah. But it's much like Big Fat Greek Wedding, where it kind of gives us an insight to the culture, and it was kind of big at that point.
Yeah, and I mean the word ABCD is a little bit different because Jess doesn't come across as that type of person, where Jess, I think, is still very cultured.
But I think it's the identity, right? What they're struggling with.
That's true, yeah.
Is living up to their parents' expectations or ethics or even morals, when at the same time they're growing up in a completely different environment.
It's true though. You know why? Because I was actually talking to my cousin in India like last week, and he's like, "Do I need to slow down for you? You're understanding what I'm saying, right?" And stuff like that. And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I know how to speak Punjabi, right?" Like, and so yeah, it's just that kind of like, even when you go there, right? And there's certain things that you can't do when you go there, like I can't drink the water when I go to India, right? It just doesn't sit well with me. But then there's certain things are like, yeah, if we go here, you're okay with that, right? Or, you're okay, like, eating this or doing that. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm just a regular human being like you guys, right? And,
they think your stomach won't handle it, or is just the cultural differences?
No, not only, not the stomach. No, culturally, right? So they think that we might be very
example. I'm curious.
Westernized. What's an example?
I guess because in essence to them, you are not from there. As much as your parents have tried to bring you up in that way, you're still not from there to them.
Yeah.
Would be the simplest thing, right? I guess.
And that's the identity crisis. I think more so that's evident in Britain than Canada, because Canada, we're more of a lax liberal society where it's like, hey, man, everybody's Canadian. Diversity is our strength, blah, blah, blah. In Britain, though, I've heard from a lot of people that I don't feel Indian and I don't feel British, so I don't know what I am, right?
Yeah, and I guess it dilutes over time, or it should. You would hope it dilutes over time, right? As people start to identify
100%.
as just being where they're from.
Yep.
And I think it has happened in some cultures in England. It probably depends which city you brought up in as well.
Yeah, it happens in a lot of places too, where you're a citizen of the country. Yep. You've lived there your whole life. That's all you know. But at the same time, it might be because of the color of your skin or your cultural background. You're still considered an outsider by many. Like I know in France, they have that issue with Algerians. Britain, definitely with Indians.
Yeah,
for sure.
And actually, that's an interesting point you bring up about Indian Brits, because even in 2001, I think there were like at least their generation, right? People that had moved from India, like in general, I'm saying, right? Whereas in Canada, still we're a lot in first, second generation. So for us, it's a little bit different, where Brits are actually,
England, Sorry, I was going to say, if you think in England, it started happening in the 70s and stuff, and maybe a little bit earlier, people moving, working in cotton mills and stuff in the north, Indian people opening like corner shops and stuff, or like mini marts and stuff, I guess. So yeah, it did happen. It's almost like 30 years ahead, kind of, in some regards.
So I guess we've said a lot about, Indian Brit culture, Asian British culture. Let's talk about Jules a little bit, because she's sort of struggling in the same way also, like Jess is, where we've touched on this, where her mom is, kind of against her playing football, and that she should be out chasing boys instead of playing football. So entirely different reason as to why she shouldn't be playing football, but
she's a very prim and proper mother who's very feminine. Calls her Poppet. At the very the first sentence line she says is she calls Jules Poppet. And it's like kind of a contrast to you go straight from Jess's family to her, and it's quite the contrast. It's weird, but same thing for sure. Like, she wants her to be her. She wants her to dress in pink and stuff, and
But
she gives her those pretty shoes and stuff, doesn't she? She puts the bows on, and it's just like not Jules at all.
Get your lesbian feet out of my shoes. At the end. I guess that's the interesting thing. Like, I want to ask you guys about, or like women's football in England. So we're behind the times here in North America with soccer, as we call it. But it seems like in England, they're looking to America as this land of like milk and honey to come to play women's soccer. So at that point in England, was it still years behind?
No, it's been professional since like the 90s.
We had we had like the Mia Hamm moment in the 99 World Cup where soccer kind of exploded here, women's soccer. But it seems like there was zero opportunities for women in England, right?
Yep.
I guess so. In the 90s, the FA took back over, like taking the professional football. That happened like in the early 90s. But then, England didn't necessarily perform that well at all.
Yeah.
So here's the...
Perform a bit better. And I think that's what spurred England on. So maybe at this time, there wasn't as much...
I think
even though it was professional, I just don't think the standard was that great, really. And like with the women's men didn't... the women's national team didn't qualify for the World Cup for like 10, 12 years or something. It was a huge gap.
Oh, wow.
Until like 2006, I think it was.
Right.
I think that's the context, just that whilst there was a professional framework, it wasn't a good framework.
There wasn't attention being paid to it. Here's the interesting thing that ties into the plot of this movie. So when Jess first meets Jules, Jules tells her about professional opportunities in America for women. It kind of entices her and says, we can make a living as footballers in America, not here, but America, there's opportunities, and we can play for the WUSA. This movie came out in 2002.
Yeah.
So the WUSA folded in 2003. So sadly, 1 year after this movie came out, the league that they were talking about in the movie folded.
I guess nobody wanted to watch Jesminder Bhamra tear it up in the WUSA, so they just stopped watching it. Yeah.
So
interestingly, go ahead.
The WPS came back in 2009, just a bit of history lesson. So WPS came back in 2009, that folded in 2012, and then NWSL, which launched right after that, has been around since 2013. So there are opportunities now for women. Maybe we'll get a Bend It Like Beckham sequel. That'd be kind of cool.
So speaking of Bend It Like Beckham, the actual title, because in America, Fox Searchlight, which actually distributed the movie, they actually had a concern that people may not actually know who Beckham is. This movie was going to be called Move It Like Mia in America.
Which makes zero sense.
Exactly.
Okay, so you guys get like the double entendre of the title, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like Bend It Like Beckham. So it's
sense, Like
bend it like...
It's not a term for...
Yeah. Well, bend it like the kick, obviously, like a Beckham free kick.
Yeah.
But bend it is also to... bend that kind of the rules that are placed upon Jess by her parents.
I didn't get that part.
Yeah, so that's what it's meaning. It's kind of bending that cultural line that she has to toe.
Oh, wow.
So Move It Like Mia means nothing.
Yeah, because move it's not a...
Maybe it's move the pendulum or move the needle bit by bit. Who knows?
I guess, yeah. They could have framed it that way, but it's not as clever.
No, definitely not. So that was... that was something I actually found out, that they were going to name it Move It Like Mia. And then Gurinder Chadha, the director, was like, hell no, we're not doing that. But she didn't actually. This movie was not inspired by David Beckham either in the first place. She was actually thinking of Ian Wright when she started directing this.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, and she said that the evolving concept of Britishness, because Ian Wright was, I think, in the 96 Euros, he had like a British flag or the Union Jack draped over himself. And that's where she kind of came up with the concept that, there's plenty of, Indo-Brits that may be in the situation one day. And she wanted to, I guess, make a movie about it.
Yeah, because Beckham's career from 99 to 2001-ish was in a bit of turmoil, right? On the national scene.
Yeah, because he was off World Cup 98, England, Argentina, last 16. Now Atletico Madrid manager Diego Simeone was winding him up and stamped on him and drew a foul. And then Beckham decided to give him a little kick.
Yeah,
and it was Beckham that got sent off and not Simeone. So Beckham was like hated at this point. Like first game of the season, I think they played West Ham. And they had effigies of Beckham, like that they were burning.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And it took a long time until he recovered. Like he was booed at, I think it was Euro 2000, even though in one of the games he got like 3 assists, or even I think maybe I was the qualifiers. He got like 3 assists in one game and was still booed throughout the game.
Yeah.
That was against Portugal.
Yeah, that was it. Yes.
3-2 defeat the Portugal.
3-2, and he set up the goals. Yes. Yeah.
So I guess it wasn't actually lifted. So the hate wasn't actually lifted until he scored that free kick against Greece in 2001, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on the up spiral. He became captain by then because Kevin Keegan had quit in the toilet, and Sven-Goran Eriksson came in and kept him as England captain. So he's sort of, I guess with him being entrusted with the captaincy, people started to turn around on him a little bit. And then, when he scored that free kick against Greece, like everybody loved him because we were going to the World Cup, and it was him that was the driving force of that like so-called golden generation.
Right. But he's got like Beckham has a history of doing that in his career. Like he had that at England or with England. And then he did the same thing in Madrid where he came on, wasn't really loved until I think they won the championship in 2007.
Right.
And then with Galaxy, he left for a loan. Was it to AC Milan?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it was. Yeah. So he left on a loan and he came back late into the season. And at that point, Galaxy hadn't won anything for a few years. And this is after they brought him in as like the promised, like not golden child, but the person who would kind of lead them to greatness. And it wasn't until I think 2012 or maybe 11 that they won their first championship with him. So he has that history of kind of pissing people off and then winning back their favor just by his performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one thing that I'd like to point out actually, Mrs. Bhamra's acting in this movie from an Indian perspective was phenomenal. Just her mannerisms and the stuff that she would say. So I don't think she's actually ethnically Indian. I think she's Pakistani, which is, sort of the same thing, but she was talking in Punjabi as well. Her acting was phenomenal in this film. And I believe, and I can't verify this now because there's not much of information available about her. I know her name's Shaheen Khan, but I believe she's not actually that much older than Parminder Nagra. Yeah. And yeah, she did a phenomenal job as a mother. Of course, Mr. Bhamra is the infamous Anupam Kher from Indian cinema fame. He's been in a bunch of movies, both in Hollywood, all indies as well, and just Indian cinema. She's been everywhere. And they both actually did a great job, I found, from an acting perspective.
Yeah, there was there's good timing for some of their comedy stuff, I guess. There was one well, I don't necessarily. The timing was good. I don't necessarily think sometimes the jokes hit the right note sometimes, but the timing was still good. Like there was one scene quite early on after the mum catches her Jess playing at the park.
Yeah, and
then Jess is playing keepy uppies with vegetables.
Yeah.
And then the mum kind of slaps her and just yells like "Alu Gobi" at her. And I don't think that joke's necessary. I didn't find it funny at the time, and now it's even less so. It's like the punchline is the name of a food, so I didn't find it too funny, but the timing is all there. The way she slaps her is comical. Yeah, the punchline's like lacking. I find that in general with some of the jokes in this. Like I found the punchline not necessarily being there, but it's still the
Right.
time. Everything is building up to the punchline's really good. The same with when she says, when she catches her at the park and she says, "What are you see if you can't make a round chapati?" And it's like, yeah, good point, because that is important. But it's, yeah.
So the round chapati bit is actually funny because in Indian social media circles, there's always this running meme. It's like, if she can make round chapatis, wife that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the same. My wife is Guyanese, and they have the same thing with roti. Like, if it's flaky enough, kind of, and if you can pat the roti together with your bare hands, then your wife material. Yeah.
Yeah. I find comedic elements actually when she switches languages. So when she goes to Punjabi and then what she says in English afterwards, I find that funny. And maybe it is timing. Probably. But I find that switch pretty funny.
And there's some funny subtle lines as well that I maybe didn't pick up on when I originally watched it, because I guess we touched on it before. The sister's wedding gets called off because they think that Jess is having a relationship with Jules.
Yeah.
And kind of the wedding eventually gets called back on when they realize it's a small misunderstanding. And the mum says, "Oh, go and get the invites. We'll show them the best wedding. We'll show them we're not poor." And then she's like, "Oh, go and get the invites. They're in the extension." And like that line alone, the extension is because they're clearly like a middle class family.
Yeah, for sure.
And the extension is in England at least, because there's not as many detached houses as there are here in Canada.
Yeah.
The extension is such a middle class way of extending your house, way bigger than it ever should have been. And so many people do it. Like I've lived in houses that had extensions and stuff. Like, it's the done thing to like get an extension on your terraced house. It's just funny. It's just subtle little things that are thrown in there to kind of build this picture of this family, right?
I felt two ways about that wedding being called off, because on one hand I do agree that if you find a girl and she's out like kissing boys or girls in this case, whatever it is, it's a huge like.
Yeah, but it was her sister though. It wasn't actually
it was
the bride, or the bride.
No. But even if you find like somebody that's part of the family, right? It is like, it is a black stain kind of, right? It's like, holy, like, what are these people doing? Who are these people? Like, look at how her sister is. Like, how is she?
I guess that's more of an Indian culture thing, right? Like, even with Indian culture, it's because of the caste system. You look at the names of the last names of people.
Yeah.
And that's almost like one of the grades, I guess, you're rating them on as a potential suitor.
100%. But the other point is, calling off a wedding is a huge deal in the community, right? It's like, oh my God, look at them. Like, they're damaged goods. The wedding got called off. Like, that's what people are going to say. And it's like, I think parents would be more weary of calling off a wedding than like catching somebody's sister with a boy or a girl, right? Like,
so we had some friends that did it. Yeah. We had some friends that did it recently, called off a wedding. So I guess the bride and groom got cold feet, but like the week before the wedding.
Oh, wow.
And so then that was a big deal. And like, even to save face, the mum was like, "We'll have to pretend somebody's died." Like, she couldn't bear to tell people the actual reason. So to save face, they told people that somebody had passed away rather than the truth, that they had cold feet. And I don't know if this is still the case, but for a very long time, that mother didn't speak to her son. It's like a family friend we have.
Oh, for sure.
Because it was such a disgrace. Like, all the money that had gone to waste. Yeah. Because I'm sure
it's embarrassing too, right? By that point, people might have bought gifts or prepared for the wedding.
Flights as well, I guess.
Flights, yeah. But I think more than a money thing, it's like, you have to save face somehow, right? It's rightly or wrongly, right?
People do what they got to do, right?
Yeah. Another thing, back to your cast comment, Mark, is I find it hilarious in especially Punjabi culture. A lot of things we do culturally we're not supposed to do from a religious perspective. So in the Sikh religion, which Jess and family are portraying in this, caste system is not supposed to exist. Right? There's not supposed to be a difference between men and women, but culturally all these things exist. But from a religion standpoint, it's supposed to be like everybody's equal. This is why when we go to the Gurdwara, which is a temple, everybody sits on the floor, so everybody is like on the same equal on the same footing. Nobody, and even when we eat, so every Gurdwara actually serves food in the basement, kind of thing.
There's a lot of like hypocrisy throughout the entire movie, right? Like you have Jess in the locker room telling them that, telling her teammates, maybe you guys can fill me in, but she says if it's a an Indian boy, it's okay. If it's a white guy, no way. If it's a black guy, no way. If it's a Muslim, there might have been like a couple other in that list, but the father was saying like when he came to England, he had racism shouted at him. And then even there's that scene with Jess when she's playing, and she's called a slur by somebody else on the field. Yeah. But at the same time, there's a lot of other hypocrisy from the Indian family where they're kind of saying like either Indian or nothing, right? Yeah. And then even her kind of hanging out with a white girl, it's kind of like, who is this Gory, right?
Yeah. And even it has to be the right type of Indian, right? Because they talk about Nasser Hussain being cricket captain, and they're like, oh no, Hussain, that's a Muslim name. It's not the same.
Yeah. Nice boy with a beard.
I mean, it's, I don't know.
What's your perspective on that? Controversial perspective, I'd say.
It's not a controversial perspective because it definitely does exist, right? It's like, on the one hand, you're like, yeah, man, maybe I'm not getting all these opportunities. Because skin color or culture, whatever it is, then it's like, yeah, my daughter, white guy, yeah, probably not, right?
It's I don't know. It's more it's more than we can probably get to the bottom of on our podcast, but it's 100% in the sense of this movie.
And it's more of an old school generation thing too. I mean, like new generation, nobody really cares, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And even with the generation that I think is like older than me, at least, I think it's not even as big of a deal. And apart from a few families that I know, nobody's really that hardcore about anything. Nobody's really fussed. Right? No, like even the most like religious families or the most culturally oriented families are not what they portray in this movie. Definitely some that are, right? Some that don't let their girls go out and the girls constantly have to lie. It's actually a joke in our community that have to lie about going out to the library when they're really going out to a pub or club or whatever it is. But you're a young adult, you're a teenager, a young adult. Like, how do you have to navigate it somehow, right?
Well, like one part that made me laugh is when, so like Jess got shit this entire movie for playing soccer with boys in the park and being seen with another girl. And then when they get to that wedding scene, there's that dude making out with the girl in the washroom. Yeah. But then when they're on the dance floor, there's this one guy like motorboating an auntie. Yeah. He's lifting her up in the air. So just double standard, I guess, right? Is that double standard between races or men and women, really?
No. So I think there's a perception that if it's not my kid, then I don't really care.
Okay.
Right? So if that guy is doing it with somebody else, we're definitely going to go home and shit talk them for sure. But it's not my kid, so we're all good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. No. I think that's like even in Portuguese families, it's the same thing, right? Yeah. You're strict about everything until your kid does it, and then it's kind of not a big deal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy.
There was a funny line with so you'd mentioned before, Adam, where the strict white mom was telling the husband Frank Harper that there's only one Spice Girl without a fella, and that's Melanie C.
Oh yeah.
And she actually does like 3 or 4 tracks for this. I mean, I think it's 2 tracks for this movie. She actually wrote one song specifically for this movie.
Yeah, so and then when they're in the club in Hamburg, you hear
I Turn to You, and
which is one of her songs.
There was one other song that she wrote based on this movie.
Called Independence, I think
or something. It's when they go shopping. When Jules and Jess go shopping in the city.
Yeah, it's called Independence Day.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
nice. And she buys Predators. Yeah. That was an interesting scene too, actually, when she buys the shoes and she comes home, and then Pinky grabs them for Pinky, who's her sister, grabs them and throws them on her mom's lap, and then she sees the black shoes, which even I'm like, man, a girl wearing those would look not very good, right? And then she pulls out the cleats and she's like, oh my god, like, oh man, that's hilarious.
Let's get into some of the characters then. Yeah. Like, so I think Pinky is completely unlikable in this movie. Like, there's very little redeeming qualities about her.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then she has those friends of hers that are like utter like bints.
The slags.
Slags from the start, and they're using all this slang like laters and stuff. And
laters. So early 2000s.
Yeah.
Dude, when I went to the UK last year, there's still people talking.
Oh, yeah, people like that. Yeah, exactly.
Stay corrected.
Yeah, go to the right areas, you'll find them.
Oh, man.
Hounslow, Southall, you still hear words like that.
Yeah.
So when I first watched this movie, I was always creeped out by, we haven't mentioned him yet, but there's Joe, the Irish coach, played by Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. He was probably this is probably his breakout role. I think his first big movie. After that, he was in an Elvis miniseries, which is well received. He did The Tudors after that, but he's always kind of had some trouble in his career. I know he had some issues with rehab. He had a spat on a plane one time, but I thought he was terrible in this role, to be honest. Like reading the Wikipedia, he received acclaim for this role. I've always been creeped out by him, just the way he acts around these young girls.
Yeah, like how old is he supposed to be that he would be in a relationship with a teenage girl? Like I know it's talked about how he gets injured early and that's why he's a coach, but I would still have thought he's in his 20s or something at least.
True. And in the movie, Jess is supposed to... She's finishing up her A-levels to go to uni, right?
So she would have been about 15, 16, right?
So how old is that?
No, A-levels, you like 17, 18.
Okay.
17, 18?
Yeah, she did GCSEs 15, 16, and then, you're at like sixth form or college for 2 years, so then 17, 18, and then university, yeah.
Okay,
But
so
still,
in real
she
life...
looks younger than that, I guess.
But he always comes off as creepy, like he's using his position of power to be kind of like predatory to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know, he acts with a smolder. That's all he does. He kind of looks off he looks off into the distance beyond them. And I thought he was so bad in this movie.
Yeah, it doesn't come across as genuine that he actually likes her more than he likes any of the other girls. If the other girls gave him that same attention, he would go with any one of them, kind of.
Yeah. So turns out in real life, he's 2 years younger than Jess.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
he's 2 years younger than Jess, and Jules is actually closer to 10 years younger than both of them.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, so it makes it a lot less creepy, but in context of the movie,
Of course.
In context, it's still a man manipulating his power, using his power, right?
Yeah. I found him pretty likable at first, to be honest. That coach, he's telling his players to work hard or whatever. And then I guess when they start sort of getting lovey-dovey in Hamburg, that kind of hit me out of the blue because I'm like, where is this coming from? Right?
He comes across as such a creep, even when he's following them to the club. He opens the door for Jules. He's kind of like, all right, give me a kiss. And then she kisses him and runs off.
Oh, yeah, that's true, I guess.
And I don't know, maybe you guys will disagree, but I felt like his character was completely unnecessary to the movie. Like this entire movie could have existed without him.
Yeah, I think this entire movie could have existed without a love story. If we're telling a movie about, the clashes between new and old culturally, and it's women's empowerment, women's soccer. What does a love story have to do with? Like that's almost anti-women. Like
you found you've got these two women of different races that come together through soccer.
Yeah,
but then are torn apart because of a man, and it's like it didn't need that
exactly
because it already had the conflict it had to bring conflict somewhere, but it already had the conflict with the two families.
Right. But the conflict between Jess and Jules, the conflict could have been that maybe Jess gets an opportunity that Jules was waiting for. So the scout shows up in the final game. Yeah. He sees Jess. He picks Jess to go to Santa Clara, and then Jules gets left behind. Like, why not make that the conflict instead of having the two of them fight over a man?
Yeah.
Anything would have been better.
Yeah, anything would have been better. Yeah, I think there's another layer that could have been added to this movie for sure that would have taken it a lot further. That would have taken it from a good movie to something that will live long in the memory, I guess you can say.
Yeah, it would have made for a tighter film without that whole
100%
unnecessary love story.
Yes, I agree. Any other characters you wanted to talk about?
Frank Harper's character.
Love Frank Harper.
He's just like a toned down version of himself. His best scene is probably when he's using they're outside eating food and he's using the condiments to explain the offside rule when Mum's finally accepted that she's going to get into football.
Yeah.
But I think that's because you guys are pulling his backstory from like Football Factory into this, right?
Well,
yeah, probably.
You're imagining that he's settled down.
He's settled down post Football Factory and got a family now, a new family, a prim and proper wife. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, if we're talking about characters, I know we touched on Jules' mom. I think she did a pretty good job actually portraying that woman, right? That we all know that just wants her daughter to be proper.
Yeah.
I think both female mothers did a really good job. And I thought Anupam Kher did a really good job as Jess's father. Frank Harper obviously was toned down, but it was good.
Jess's father, what would he be the kind of equivalent to like the Bollywood version of a Hollywood actor? Would he be like a kind of like a De Niro?
No.
Give us context of how big he is in Bollywood.
Oh wow, I don't like not a Morgan Freeman, but like that level though for sure. He's always a father in most movies now.
Isn't it one of those as well? Like he'll have been in like 600 films or something.
That's
so
most
maybe not
successful
quite that
Bollywood
many,
stars.
but
That's most successful Bollywood stars, right?
Yeah.
He's legendary though, like a legend. Like Morgan Freeman is probably a good example.
Okay.
I mean, the roles aren't as nuanced in Bollywood as they are in North America or in Hollywood, right? It's not like you'll get an Indian guy playing Nelson Mandela or anything like that. or like
I want to see that film.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, Morgan Freeman, because I've seen him play politicians and stuff before.
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
2 Bollywood actors just recently died as well, right?
Yeah, that was really sad. Within one day, both of them who are legends. Irfan Khan being the first one who has been in countless Bollywood films, but also a lot of indies and Hollywood films.
I was going to say, I've seen his name pop up in a couple Hollywood movies.
Yeah, so Slumdog Millionaire, Life of Pi, like not like the good movies.
Oh, yeah, he was the shitty businessman in Jurassic World as well.
Yes, that too.
Yes.
Yes, that's probably...
Yeah, and so that was very sad itself for the entire nation of India. And then another actor named Rishi Kapoor, who's all Bollywood based, but another legend, like Anupam Kher style legend in Bollywood, died within 24 hours. And it's like the whole entire country's in mourning now.
What did they die from? Anything like COVID related, or was it just...
No, so Irfan Khan had, I believe, had a brain, something in his brain, maybe a brain tumor for the last, since 2018. Rishi Kapoor had leukemia.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, moving on from the characters, one thing that I wanted to point out was the music.
Yes.
Good soundtrack. I always welcome Basement Jacks in movies. There's not enough of it.
Oh, right, when she's sneaking out of the house and hiding her stuff in the hedge, right?
Yes. Yeah. Big fan of Basement Jacks, Rendezvous, Romeo, Do Your Thing. Dizzy Rascal is like I think that was Dizzy Rascal, right? When they were playing in the park.
No,
I meant to look up the same.
I meant to look up what that song is because that song was in so many films of this era.
Oh, okay, I swear, like every British film has Dizzy Rascal or something. What's that genre of music called? It's not like Garage House, right?
Grime.
Yeah, is it grime? Yeah.
Grime or garage.
Yeah, he's like a mixture of grime and garage. In a bit more like recent years, he's become more like poppy. But grime. I guess he's a grime artist. Yeah.
Yeah, because there was something else we watched recently where that kind of popped up as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of Punjabi artists featured in this movie as well, and a lot of Hindi songs actually that are already popular in Bollywood, but that were kind of remixed. Right. There's one Punjabi group called B21 who's from the UK. Actually, B21, they're named B21 because that was the beginning of their postal code in Birmingham. They shot up after this movie. Really shot up after this movie in the Indian community.
They had a few covers as well of English songs, like Indian versions of English songs.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, The Wedding. There was one in particular. I was like, wait, is that? Oh, there's stuff I forgot to look up here, but I can't remember what it was.
But yeah, I found that interesting. Kind of like a blending of the cultures, which is what this movie is all about, really.
Yeah, which actually in that time, the Punjabi music industry it came all from the UK. It came entirely from the UK. Now that's actually shifted to Canada a bit. Because the UK, like I was saying before, that people are in their 3rd, 4th generation, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Where here we're still kind of newer. So that music industry is kind of shifted to Canada instead of the UK now. So that was really cool. But yeah, definitely the soundtrack was excellent in this movie. The characters were great.
Tony, we mentioned him before, but he
was good.
He's really good in this movie.
Yeah, I liked him.
One thing at the very end, so one character that's kind of present throughout the entire movie. And I guess like going back to Beckham. So you're saying it was supposed to be Ian Wright and then it became Beckham. Beckham himself was kind of the first English player to really kind of dispel that notion of like the hard edge kind of, I guess like Gaza, like not a hooligan, but
like a man's man.
Man's man. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Beckham?
Yeah, because he's like soft spoken and he was a pretty boy.
Married to a Spice Girl, or
you mean do you mean be a man's man or be like more like sensitive, like which?
Yeah, more sensitive.
More sensitive. Okay, yeah.
Gaza would have been like the man's man.
Yeah.
Beckham kind of he was one of the pioneers of like that metrosexual movement.
Yes,
in the early
100%. 100%, I agree.
Yeah, like he was wearing sarongs and stuff.
Yes, sarong.
It's like front page news. Like
I know that's so wrong. Do you remember Ali G?
Yeah.
You had an interview with him and
Posh.
Posh, right? Yeah, that's right. But I think
Beckham,
that's why
you telling me you've never been caught offside? Sorry, go on.
No, I think that's why he was kind of the perfect kind of poster boy for this film. He was almost the first soccer player to appeal to women as well as men, right? Like the Hollywood type.
Yeah.
That's why he had a shoe thrown at him by Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah. That's what led him to go to Real Madrid ultimately.
And
yeah, exactly.
And recovered from that.
And a lot of Indians follow Manchester United as well. So that was interesting.
True.
Yeah.
Was he the first? Also, I guess from like your guys' perspective, was because I guess that Hollywood thing plays into him being more famous in North American culture. Was he like the first English player that was like famous in that way, like over here? Or were there other English players you would have heard about before then? I guess it's hard, right? Because of the era, we were a bit younger anyway, so.
Not hard for me because I was always into football. Maybe it's harder to judge. I think mainstream media-wise, I think definitely Beckham in that way because what I remember is that Beckham, even in the mid-2000s, was known as for his celebrity status more than he was known for his football, especially in this part of the world. Mm-hmm. If you were to ask me when I was growing up, it would have been both Beckham and Michael Owen. That's just me personally.
But then that's because you've got the Liverpool perspective, right?
Yeah. But you're speaking to as well, Adam, is like a mainstream perspective, right?
Yeah. Like he would be a celebrity in his own right over here as well, and like just famous in general.
My generation,
how like a Michael Jordan kind of was outside of.
Yeah, I'd say definitely. Like my generation, you'd have like everyone would know Pele, and then part of the Brazilian team, kind of. But there weren't any really crossover stars at that point. Not like at the Michael Jordan level, like you were saying.
No,
baseball was kind of bigger in the 90s.
Yeah,
sure. But yeah, it was really David Beckham once he started dating one of the Spice Girls. Became a household name.
Yeah. Because I was just trying to think back to the Brazilian teams of that era. Maybe we're talking about Ronaldo R9, and I'm like, no. If you don't watch football, you probably don't know who that is. But Beckham, I'm thinking you know who that is because he's married to a Spice Girl.
Yeah, 100%. Well, at that time, you had magazines like Maxim or Stuff, right? And he was showing up within those magazines because of his style. So it's kind of him, Justin Timberlake, George Clooney, who kind of drove that metrosexual movement where it was okay to take care of yourself, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So at the very end, we do get a Beckham cameo, and the first time I saw it, I thought he was much worse. What are they called when it's like a fake? You hire a fake,
like a lookalike,
body
lookalike,
double? I don't know.
I thought it was a really bad lookalike, but the second time watching it now, it's actually not bad. But going back to Tony, so I noticed this in the background. So Tony's watching him the entire time and kind of like licking his lips as well. So that's the telltale sign that he's no longer interested in girls or was never.
Yeah. So that airport scene kind of bothers me a little bit.
There's a few things.
There's a few things. So let's dive deep into it. So I'm going to say, and this is again inspired from Hassan Minhaj. When you're a brown person or Indian person growing up in a conservative traditional Indian family, you only have a handful of cards to play throughout your life, right? You want to go to University of America? That's a card. She plays 2 cards at the airport. Not only does she go off to America, but she's now kissing a white guy in the airport. That would be too much. That'd be too much to handle for an Indian family.
And then it's just weird because they say it's like a throwaway line, like "I will deal with them when I get back," and it's like
never.
You just made out, stood right behind them. How they didn't notice, I have no idea.
Yeah,
because they're like beside themselves that you're leaving. It's just so weird.
Yeah. Like you don't want to go to med school. That's a card, right? Like. That's it. But yeah, you can't play 2 cards that quick, man. You can't just be like, yep, I'm going off to America and I'm kissing this Irish dude in the airport before I leave.
Well, what are they going to do at that point, though?
They say, you're not going to America. I don't care how much it costs for you not to go to America. 100%.
Yeah.
I guess they saved the money on not calling off the wedding. So maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt that whole love story was just totally unnecessary. Would have been a better movie without it.
100%. Or even if they had a Coach Carter type coach, right? Like might have been better in that case. Yeah.
Or
so much older, wiser.
Yeah, for sure.
Being a tough guy and telling her she's got to concentrate rather than wasting. Do you know what might have worked well actually is like a racist coach, somewhat, but not racist towards her, but racist towards like the old ways. So it would have been another contrast. It's like, why are you wasting your time?
He's Irish
to cook and stuff. Yeah.
Did you get that line?
Yeah, was it English, Irish? They all look the same.
Yeah. He's talking about how the girl was racist to her and this and that, and then he's just like, I'm Irish. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and if you tell your parents, like, oh, look, he's Irish, they're being racist to him too, like, they're never going to understand, man.
No.
Like Pinky says, oh, the bloody same in it.
Yeah.
Funny. Yeah, it was some moments I'm like, what the hell's going on?
It has aged pretty well, though.
It definitely has.
Yeah,
I agree.
So I guess in that regard, I mean, let's look at the legacy of this movie, right? So from this movie, it was kind of the first crossover, I think, of kind of blending that generation of Desi into the white community. And then not even just the white community, but growing up, I guess, in the West.
Is it the first? I'm trying to think now.
The only other film I can think that tackled this was just before this is East is East.
East, yeah.
Which is a Pakistani guy who I think's dating a white woman, and they're trying at the same time they're trying to arrange a marriage for them because they don't want him to marry a white girl. It's a long time since I've seen it. It came out in like 99 or something. It's the only other film I can think that's vaguely similar.
See, I'd never even heard of that movie.
And it does like
it's British.
Also has,
very British.
Yeah. It also has like deals with homosexuality as well and stuff. So it's kind of got some similar themes.
Yeah.
That always happens when
I remember it being funny, but sorry.
Movie comes out and the exact same movie comes out like a year later.
Yeah.
That does it better.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
But yeah, we look at so you've mentioned Hassan Minhaj. He hasn't done any films, but Aziz Ansari had Master of None.
Yeah.
Which is very much in that regard of him trying to relate to his parents.
Yep.
Had a lot of great scenes where his father's kind of telling him about when he grew up, and his father wanted a guitar, but he never got that guitar.
Yeah, for sure.
But can you guys think of kind of anything else this movie has left as like an enduring legacy?
100%. I think it's launched a lot of people's careers. I think Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, you were saying, Keira Knightley became famous overnight right after this movie. Parminder Nagra. Yeah, go ahead.
Already, like Keira Knightley helped that she went straight into Pirates of the Caribbean, which took off insanely.
Yeah, she was actually in Star Wars before Bend It Like Beckham, which was one of the biggest movies of the time, but she had such a weird role that she didn't stand out at all.
That's a role. Yeah.
Parminder Nagra was a series regular on ER, which I believe is a George Clooney one.
Yes.
He was in like the early seasons of it.
Yeah. So she was a series regular there, and she's had some other roles.
Well, it's interesting because she played such a young age in this movie, and then she went into ER almost immediately after, or a couple of years after.
Yeah.
And played a more mature role.
Yeah. So Keira Knightley, Parminder Nagra, Gurinder Chadha, the director, she directed a lot more movies, and she was actually the first British Asian woman to direct a full-length feature film in Britain. So
that's the other kind of legacy project I was thinking of. She just did Blinded by the Light.
Another excellent movie on the same kind of theme. Very
much in the same vein as Bend It Like Beckham, who is, it's about a guy who's obsessed with Bob Dylan.
No, Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen, sorry.
Yeah, so good movie as well. But she's made a lot. The one that comes to mind is Pride and Prejudice, where she actually gets a Bollywood actress to come and do be the main role. And that movie actually took off, I guess, on the indie scene and the Hollywood scene. I'm not sure, but it was but yeah, I mean, she's done well. She's directed and produced some movies. So her.
They actually made a musical out of Bend It Like Beckham.
Yes, they did.
In 2015. Yeah. I think it was pretty well received as well. I know it opened up in Toronto, I want to say last year. It
was still actually running now before this whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to go see it. But
if you look at the videos of it on YouTube, the way they do the set design is actually pretty cool because they obviously have to have soccer matches in it.
For sure.
Yeah, so it looks really cool. Would have been cool to check out.
Yep. It's there. Anupam Kher is obviously already famous. He doesn't need any kind of legacy from this movie. This is probably like a pet project for him, to be honest.
Yeah.
The Shaheen Khan, the person that plays Mrs. Bhamra, I've never seen in anything again. Archie Punjabi, who plays Pinky, was actually a famous actress before in the UK and is still a pretty popular actress. I think she's on The Good Wife now.
Is she better in other stuff?
I think so.
All right.
I haven't really watched, to be honest.
I thought she was so bad in this.
My friend was actually mentioning she was on some show before Bend It Like Beckham and that she was really, really good, but I don't remember what that was. So yeah, she was good.
If you guys end up watching Never Have I Ever, check out the cousin in that movie who plays a very similar role to Pinky, but is actually a likable and relatable character.
You know what, though? I'll be completely honest with you. For me, Pinky is a pretty relatable character because I know girls like that. I mean, like, I know Bridezilla's like that. I know Bridezilla's like that. And that's pretty much what she's obsessed with her entire movie. I get it. She's a little bit like...
Just very self-centered, right?
But she's cringy as well, so makes sense. I'm just trying to look up her because it's going to bother. Oh, she was in East is East.
Oh,
Shows how much, like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen it.
And she's been in a lot of films actually, and I don't know were these minor roles or what it was, but
has Jonathan Rhys-Meyers ended up doing anything like last few years?
He was in The Tudors, no?
But I think that was almost like 10 years ago, right?
Really? I don't know.
Yeah.
Not sure.
What's his name? Amit Channa that played Tony. He was in EastEnders like shortly after this as well.
Yes.
There was a pretty prominent Indian family on that show for like 2 or 3 years, and he was part of that family. So I don't know if that came off the back of this.
You know what I loved when they're in the airport and they say, as soon as you land, call your auntie in Canada. You'll have somebody close by. Yeah. So she's in California, and you know they're talking about Brampton.
No, they're talking about Vancouver for sure.
You think so?
100%. That would make no sense if it was Brampton.
But it's not close anyways.
I mean, Santa Clara to Vancouver is still like a solid 15, 16-hour drive, I think.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Hey, I thought that was a Brampton shout out.
No. I'm pretty sure that's a Surrey, BC shout out. Yeah.
Well, Surrey is the Brampton of
British Columbia, BC. Man. Yeah. She's been, Adam, interestingly, Archie Punjabi has been in one episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Really?
Yeah. It's the episode called The Funeral, and she's Lieutenant Singh. Not sure what season that's in.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and watch.
Yeah. It's in the 3rd season. Yeah. But yeah, she has a pretty good filmography, which is not bad.
Yeah, I'm just looking now. Life on Mars as well. That was a good show. John Sims. A cop that goes back in time, sort of.
I guess, I think this is just a natural progression. Yes, I wanted to mention something about, I wanted to do some fast facts, actually. You just reminded me by saying South Korea. This was the first Western film. So fast fact number 1. This was the first Western film to be publicly screened in North Korea.
Oh, wow.
At the Pyongyang Film Festival in 2004.
Heavily edited?
I have no idea, but it was seen by 12,000 people.
Huh. Wow. Because there's a lot of homosexual elements in this movie, so
It'd be surprising.
Yeah, surprised.
The 112-minute film was edited down to just an hour long.
Oh, okay. There we go.
In North Korea, there you go. So you have Tony, and he's like, Jess, I really like David Beckham. He's a great player.
Yeah. And movie's finished.
Yeah.
Here, let me... So most of the Hounslow Harriers that are shown on screen were actually professional players at that time.
Yeah. And I wrote in my notes, that was pretty obvious from the beginning, just the way they showed them all off doing skills and stuff. It's like, okay, these aren't just actors here to make up the numbers, kind of.
Yeah. I already mentioned the one about, it was called Move It Like Mia. Let's see if there's anything else interesting. The scar on Jess's leg is actually real, and the story is actually what she said in the movie. It was beans on toast that she burned herself with, which is a pretty stupid way to get a scar on your leg, but alas.
Beans on toast can get fucking hot if you're not careful.
Yeah. You shouldn't jump, man. You shouldn't jump to catch the stove.
No.
This is obvious, but Jess's jersey number was 7, which is the same number Beckham wore for Manchester United. Yeah. Jonathan Rhys-Meyers was originally embarrassed by the film. So,
100% should be.
He's like, I thought it was going to be terrible. For months and months, I refused to tell anybody because I was embarrassed. But then he's like, everybody's going to love this. And then, alas, what happened? Everybody loves it. Yeah, I think those are the fast facts that I had. Do we want to get into footy flicks?
Sure.
Awesome.
What about the grounds that they play at? So you see it in the background a few times, and it's is it Yeading Football Club? Yeading?
Yeah, who don't exist anymore because
they merged
with somebody else. Yeah, was it Lose or something? I think.
Hayes and Yeading Football United
that was
FC.
Yeah.
And they play in the 7th level of the British football pyramid. In the Southern Football League.
In the Southern Football League, that would be which number did you say in the
7?
7. Okay. I wish we had grounds like that here in Canada, man. Like, it's nothing really. All the ground is like wooden like bleachers with just a roof over top. Like, why can't we have that here?
It's the roof. We have bleachers. It's just the roof.
Yeah.
Some of them aren't there. Some of them are like terraces.
Yeah,
well, I guess there's a difference, isn't there, between a bleacher and like a concrete steps going up. Like
exactly.
Somewhat permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything we have here is like non-committal metal
like
bleachers.
We can turn this down in minutes if we need to.
Yeah.
It's like everybody's too scared with like sporting grounds here that they're just all expecting to build condos at some point. It's like, yeah, we could easily remove this and just build condos just in case the population gets out of control, right? And yeah, like I just wish we had some better sporting infrastructure, especially when it comes to soccer.
Well, I can't remember the exact line, but it's like soccer, America's sport of the future since 1972 or something like that.
100%.
2026. We'll turn it around.
Let's hope so.
So footy flicks.
Yeah.
Adam.
Good. It helps that they have those pro players.
Yeah.
Just good. It helps that they have the pro players, but also I did a bit of research. Keira Knightley apparently was actually good at football.
Yep.
So all of her scenes and skills and stuff were real. So she was genuinely good. The only thing where I think it fell down, and I had a bit of a suspension of disbelief, and ironic, it's right at the very end when Jess is bending it like Beckham to score that goal. Why is the goalkeeper on the opposite side of the goal to where they would be? The goalkeeper's where the wall is. They would be on the other side because the wall's blocking the shot. But instead you see them stood at the one post as far away as they could possibly be, and then Jess bends it around the wall and the keeper's got no chance of getting to it. And it's just like, is that supposed to be so that it went in easily? Or
probably.
But it was kind of like why is she in the wrong position? And like, if a scout came all the way from America, he would see that free kick was actually nothing special because the keeper's positioning was off.
Yeah.
So that's the only bit that fell down. But I think it was pretty good. It did this same thing that we've seen a lot of in these films to make it easier for editing. You see that a lot of cutting. So you'll cut between bottom halves of players' bodies and top halves. So then, it's not necessarily always perfectly matched up with what they're doing, but it makes it seem like a game is going on. And then I also quite enjoyed the games in the park. We didn't really touch on it, where she's besting the lads that are all Tony's friends that are sat there playing. Or stood there playing. Like, she dribbles around them for fun and stuff, and it's quite fun to watch.
Yeah, so also Parminder Nagra, who plays Jess, her and Keira Knightley were actually put into 3 months of solid football training by the director to say that you need to learn how to do this and make it convincing for the screen. So that was good. It says that Parminder actually really damaged her toes and was too scared to kick the ball in case she broke one.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
To go from never doing it, right? To
100%. 100%. No.
I'm sure her feet took a beating, yeah.
It was good. It was convincing. I really liked the part where they showed them actually bending it around those what are they called? The fake people, the barriers.
Oh, like they're not mannequins.
The mannequin, the barriers. The barriers. Yeah. So that was really cool, and he's teaching her like how to kick. How to kick the ball,
where to hit the ball,
yeah. So I really like that.
He's not all bad.
He's not all bad. Also, one of my pet peeves in this movie. Don't you usually have to submit a game sheet at the beginning of the game?
Halfway through.
So we didn't really talk about it, did we? But the wedding goes on, and Dad tells her, Dad's like, "You've been miserable all during this wedding. Go to the game." Tony takes her, and she comes on as a sub with half an hour to go.
Yeah.
So I can only assume he hoped in his heart of hearts that she would show up, and he put her name on the subs list. That's all I can assume, right?
That's even
my own headcanon.
Even Jurgen Klopp doesn't think that far. Yeah. But no, definitely. So that was kind of cool. What about you, Mark? What did you like?
I thought they were good. I didn't even think of the scenes in the park until Adam mentioned it. But yeah, those were fun to watch.
They were good. They were good.
Those are kind of good character moments. Those guys were all kind of like dick bags.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. One of the things about this film, as much as about tolerance and stuff, there kind of isn't. There's still an undercurrent of not. It's kind of like everybody kind of gets to where they are by the end of the film in spite of the intolerant people. It would have been nicer for there to be a bit of a shed of more like of acceptance, right? Almost. Yeah, like if he came out to them, maybe and the same with you don't get the notion that either of the mothers are particularly happy with what's transpired, and they both may still secretly suspect that their daughters are going to have a lesbian affair whilst they're in the US.
Yep. But maybe that's that's kind of like the crux of the movie, right? Like the whole bend it like Beckham. So you're bending it as much as possible. You can't really compromise fully, but you kind of get away with what you can. But yeah, like the soccer scenes I found where they're kind of shot with like zero style or like panache, but they were kind of endearing in that way that they almost looked like they were filmed from the sidelines, like an action cam type thing. Mm-hmm. Like the ones earlier on. The final match was cool, but like you're saying, it's that usual kind of filming style where the feet and the heads are filmed separately as to not like let on of the actor's skill. So
it just masks it, doesn't it? They can just edit together which piece they need to suit the plot kind of, right? Without it being panned out too far. Or
so now that you mention it, like the scenes in the park are probably my favorite soccer scenes of this movie.
Yeah, no, they're definitely good. And a lot of the things that those guys were saying when, Jules came and asked her, hey, do you want to come out to trial with the Hounslow Harriers? I find that was very true until not even that long ago. Right. Like do swap shirts at the end of matches, like that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Just like
the misogynistic comments.
Yeah. Misogynistic comments. But yeah, as pure like footballing scene, I think the park had some great scenes. And I think definitely some of the training sessions, that were put on, them doing not only the football bit, but them doing the stretching, I guess, or the ab workouts. They kind of just showed all facets of it, which was good. I was really happy to see that.
Can I just go back to something? Because I'm just looking at my notes and I missed it. It's after the last football scene. Sure. When they go back to the wedding after the game, what is with the fight that's going on over the camera?
Oh, because he filmed them in the washroom.
Yeah.
Like we were saying before, the guy.
Okay. I just missed it. I was like, why are they fighting? Okay, cool.
So it kind of has a double meaning. So yes, he probably filmed them making out or whatever it is. And so that's why he's trying to fight. But sometimes in Indian weddings, there's always some sort of problems towards the end. Whether it's... I've actually never seen the cameraman try to get into a bus up, but whether it's like, somebody, has a problem with the other side's cousins and it's been simmering for a bit and like, obviously not, it's not the majority of weddings, but it does happen sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
What's kind of cool is, I can't remember exactly who it was, but everyone was invited to that wedding and was told to act like it was an actual wedding. So I think it might've been the director's like friends and family that were called in. So that's why you have those scenes that are kind of like really joyful. Like you have everyone actually looking like they're at a wedding.
Yep.
So it's not extras. It's actually friends and family just enjoying it.
Yeah.
I remember reading as well that the chauffeur driver didn't know that it was he was an actual chauffeur driver. He didn't know it was a film. He just thought it was a wedding being filmed.
That's
got to be hard to believe though.
Yeah.
It's got to be. But they kept true to like at least so all the I guess all the festivities and stuff, that's how it would go down, for sure.
Yeah, it's accurate to the few I've been to,
Yeah, it's very accurate, yeah. So, guys, are we ready for trivia time?
Sure.
Let's go for it.
Let's go for it. So I am the quiz master this week. Last week we skipped it last week, but this week we're going to do it again. And as per the movie, the theme this week is women's football. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and each of you will answer, and then I will reveal the correct answer, and we will keep score accordingly. Can you first, Adam, remind us of what the standings are looking like for trivia?
Yes, you two are both level on 4 points in second place, and I am taking the lead with 5 points.
All right, so it's all still to play for. So we will get started. So, first question has to do with the Women's World Cup in 2019. Which record did Brazil's Marta break with her 17th World Cup Finals goal this year? She scored the fastest hat trick in World Cup history. She became the all-time leading scorer at men's or women's finals. She became Brazil's oldest goal scorer. Mark, we'll start with you first.
So was it the fastest hat trick? Oldest scorer?
And the all-time leading scorer at men's or women's World Cup.
I'm going to say all-time leading scorer.
At
Seems like a realistic one.
At men's and women's?
Men's and women's, yeah.
Okay. How about yourself, Adam?
Yeah, I think it's that one too. I seem to remember seeing headlines about how she overtook, it's Closer, wasn't it? The German striker. I think she overtook him. So yeah, I'm going to go the same.
All right. So you guys both went with she became the all-time leading scorer at men's and women's finals. That's Marta, the Brazilian legend, women's legend. And you are both correct. So 1 point each. Second question. And I'm thinking maybe one of you would know this more than the other, but we'll see. Which English club announced the signing of Australian superstar Sam Kerr in November? Is it Chelsea, Manchester United, or Arsenal? Mark.
I'm not sure. I'm going to go with a guess on this and say Chelsea.
And yourself, Adam?
Yeah, I was going to go Chelsea too.
I hope we get this right. We're just pulling away from Regev in the standings.
I know.
This is the worst trivia round ever because you guys are both correct again.
Oh, boy.
All right. Last question. Please don't pull away anymore. Which United States star celebrated her World Cup semi-final goal against England by imitating sipping a cup of tea? Is it Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, or Kristen Press? Kristen Press.
I know this one. Let Adam go first.
Okay. I think it was Alex Morgan.
And yourself, Mark?
It's definitely Alex Morgan.
Correct again.
Hey, what a week. I think that's our first perfect week.
That's your first perfect week, and now I have it all to play for. Next, I've got to get all three correct. Who's the quiz master next week? Is it you again, Mark? Is you again, Mark?
No, it goes back to Adam.
It goes back to Adam. So
that's good news.
That's good news. So I can be within 1 point again if I try to get all correct.
Yeah.
What movie is it that we're doing next week?
Oh, United Passions, isn't it?
United Passions. See, that quiz is going to be a lot harder. Damn.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to dig deep into like FIFA history.
Yeah. Awesome. So, one thing we didn't discuss, where are we actually rating this movie? Let's first rate it out of 5 and then tell me where you would put it in the standings. So we'll start with you, Mark.
I really enjoyed it. Had a lot of context and obviously has a giant legacy for women's soccer. And I think, speaking from my perspective, but the Fish Out of Water or Desi films, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay. And where would you put this on the table?
On the table.
So let's recap the table again. We've got the Damned United at first. We've got Mike Bassett, England manager, at second. We've got Ultras at third. We've got Pele, Birth of a Legend, at fourth. And we got the newbie, the final score, in at fifth this week. So where are you putting this, Mark?
I think we have Kicking and Screaming at 6,
Kicking
right?
and Screaming at 6.
Kicking and Screaming is at 6. That's correct.
In the relegation zone.
Currently, yes.
I think we're going to have an argument this week. I'm going to place this. It's really tough. It's definitely not first. Between second or third, I'm not sure if I like this more than Mike Bassett. I am going to go third place.
Good.
Mike Bassett is still too funny. There's too many laugh out loud moments. I just wish this was a little bit better. I think if they had shaved off a few of the characters and storylines, it could have been a perfect film.
Yeah. That's awesome. How about yourself, Adam?
I would probably rank it like a high 3.5 stars.
Okay.
For me, I think it's hard, right? I think it's a comedy that misses a lot of funny beats.
Sure.
And then I don't think it's hard hitting enough. It doesn't go the distance with some of the stuff that I would want it to on the drama side. So I struggle to rate it any higher. And I'm kind of with Mark. I don't think it's funnier than Mike Bassett. I don't think it's as I think it's too long, like it loses a bit of momentum. But it's definitely like Ultras is so high. I can't believe it's in third after 6 rounds. So yeah, I would put it in third as well.
Okay.
Personally.
That's good.
How about you?
So I think you're the one that's going to be defending this, right?
This is going to be interesting, man, because on the one hand, okay, first of all, rating. I'm going to give this 4 out of 5 as well. Yeah. I think it was a good movie. We also gave Mike Bassett 4 out of 5.
Okay, that makes sense.
The Damned United will stay in first for me because I gave that a 4.5, I believe. And so that as a story and cinematography wise will stay at first. Am I putting this second or am I putting this third? That's the real question that I have to answer. And Mike Bassett is hilarious. It is funny. And Bend It Like Beckham, I'm not sure, like Adam said, actually hits the mark from a comedy perspective. But what it is a movie about is that it tries to bridge the gap between old versus new ideas, generations, cultures, and is still revered by a lot of the media as one of the best football films of all time. The mainstream media has not seen The Damned United, and they have not seen Mike Bassett, England manager. No. This was a hit from a mainstream perspective. This is a women's empowerment movie. And this is a great football film all on its own and a great cultural film. But having watched this for a second time as an adult, I don't actually see the appeal as much as I used to when I was growing up or even as a teenager. So I will also put this behind Mike Bassett.
All right. See, that's interesting that you feel that way about it, because I feel I take on the cultural significance more now than I did in 2001. Like, I think I just watched it, like, because I think we talked about this outside of here. It was marketed as a comedy at home, for sure. Yeah. 100%. So then I just watched it purely as that. I was like, nope, not for me. And a lot of the significance didn't mean anything to me at the time, but now it does.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you've come to it feeling the opposite.
It is a comedy, but it's almost a comedy in the sense of like a romantic comedy where it's more witty than laugh out loud, like a Superbad or like a Mike Bassett. And like you were saying, I think this is almost ripe for a remake or almost a reimagining as like a Netflix series.
Yeah, possibly. That's actually not a bad idea. But yeah, I mean, yes, I can definitely relate to this movie culturally, 100%, right? But I love football. I can also relate to Mike Bassett in the sense of I know who the players are and I can't relate to Mike Bassett. Okay, I can't actually relate to the character of Mike Bassett, but I can relate to the movie and you know, I know who the characters are portraying, and these are, as we were saying in the beginning, footballers are heroes. They're almost like gods, and I know like who you're meant to be, and you know the shenanigans that you're up to in that movie. Actually portray somebody I used to look up to, or maybe not look up to. And as a football fan, I just have to put Mike Bassett higher. Where, yes, Bend It Like Beckham has the cultural significance. Mike Bassett was still funnier, though.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, I think you really eloquently summed up your feelings for it. Like, it's definitely a cultural movie of its time, and it was a smash hit. You're right.
Yeah. Well, guys, anything else to add about Bend It Like Beckham?
Not from me.
Awesome. So that brings us to the end of our show. Where can people find you, Adam? We'll start with you.
Flameboy84 on Twitter and Joypad's Goalpost on Instagram.
And yourself, Mark?
Mark83 on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram as 83football.
All right. And for myself, you can find me at Raghav Sandhu, both on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for being part of this show. And from the terrace to the theater, we're Matchday Matinee. See you next time.